prioritize and place precedence on certain topics. I think that there's so much exciting earlier stage kind of innovation happening in these areas in terms of electrifying beyond auto. That's super exciting. I do think that, you know, the kind of non-governmental organization that affiliated with shipping, like they have pretty stringent targets for electrifying like massive container ships. I think that'll be difficult. I think making a Boeing like 787, I think that is going to be difficult to electrify anytime soon. But there are a ton of applications that will make sense, especially as kind of energy intensity, like as that improves and cost curves go down. And, you know, there are these new kind of battery breakthroughs like solid state as they come to the fore. And then also, you know, hydrogen, we talked about this more yesterday, but I think there are applications there in a lot of areas that just can't be served with today or even tomorrow's kind of state-of-the-art battery storage technology that are really interesting. And one of those is drones. We haven't talked about drones. I think drones are really interesting. I have my FAA like license, and I think for a lot of kind of drone applications, you know, again, this is B2B, but there's a startup working on like hydrogen fuel cell drones, and that thing could stay in the air for way longer than anything that's powered by a battery.
Yeah, and so the key things are so range, as you mentioned, it's the energy density and subsequent weight of the battery packs, and then also charge speeds. Anything I'm missing there is kind of the key drivers that would make hydrogen more attractive.
Yes. No. I think those are important. Obviously, price though. That's the key part of the equation that's not really there yet. Also, I want to say I said energy intensity, and it's only 9 a.m. here, so apologies about that.
Yeah, specific energy or energy density, but yeah, and also getting hydrogen isn't, especially sustainable hydrogen, isn't the easiest thing here. So infrastructure, there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a list of kind of breakthrough technologies or whatever to watch for and watch progress for. I think like, you know, solid state batteries are on there, like green hydrogen, I think mini nuclear reactors, all that. I think, you know, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but electrified air mobility, that's on the horizon. There are some companies that have prototypes that there's some that are literally already public, but you know, I think that could work, and that would be a good first kind of killer application for battery technology as it pertains to the skies. Yeah. And you know, the airlines and like shipping, those are all they have sizable carbon footprints. So eventually like we're going to have to start thinking about that. I mean, sorry that there are already people thinking about that, but
eventually it's going to become mainstream. And I think part of the driving factor might be, I mean, if transportation is lumped together in the carbon emissions, if the impact of on-road transportation is decreased over time, which it's more than likely going to be the case pretty soon here, then the proportional impact of these other industries, I think, are going to catch more of the public perception and also regulatory eye.
Yeah, I mean, I have no qualms whatsoever with taking the low-hanging fruit first and doing what makes sense with today's technology and today's prices and everything. But yeah, eventually there is going to be that holistic kind of cross-sector examination.
Yeah, and I guess I can point anyone who's interested. So I just had a podcast interview a couple of weeks ago with Max Liebman from H3X, who's developing integrated electric motors and drives for aircraft and somewhat marine applications, which we got into detail about kind of the state of the art for regional air mobility and what that might be. So that could be an interesting listen. And then on the industrial type mining applications, I had Kimo Rauma from Danfoss Editron on a few months ago, and I can link to both of these in the show notes. But that's an interesting one, listening to him on the duty cycles and how an electric motor for something like a stone crushing machine is far superior to a diesel internal combustion engine from a torque and performance and efficiency standpoint.
Yeah, I just add that those sorts of episodes are like for me, it's just so information dense. Like I learned so much because, it's focused on, like we're saying, like, all of these trends, electrification, like happening kind of on the margins in the quote unquote unsexy places that, it's worth talking about and it's worth learning about. And yeah, it just doesn't get the love that it deserves. Maybe that's
yeah. And I hope to have someone on about marine applications to dive there deep soon. So if anyone knows someone who's in a technology leadership role in one of those companies, I'd love to talk to someone.
I can make that intro for you.
Yeah, it'd be great if you could. But cool. So Ryan, anything? Again, sorry to record this discussion twice, but anything last thoughts you want to get in? Anything we might have missed? I mean, subscribe. I can't endorse highly enough, and I said yesterday, but I'll repeat here. But I've sent a lot of my friends to Emerging Brew and Morning Brew, and I think everyone who has taken me up on it have become fans and advocates themselves, because I think what you guys are doing is unique and brings a ton of value to me personally. So I can't recommend it enough. Check out what they're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The final kind of parting thought would just be to flip to, I want to put on the hat that I'm typically wearing, which is interviewer. And I just want to hear your thoughts on any of the big trends in mobility of the 2020s that we didn't discuss here, or just, from the perspective, we are at the end of the day, an unconventional media company, but we're part of that sort of that establishment, and it makes a difference what gets covered and what doesn't get covered. So I just want to hear from your point of view in the trenches, if there's any areas, any trends, any just massive developments that are being criminally undercovered, let's say.
Yeah, it's a good thought. So I think we've touched on some of it, and I just talked about kind of adjacent technologies in aircraft and mining, which I think there's a lot of work being done in some of these areas and marine applications. I think we touched on some of this, but commercial on-road applications of I think those, I mean, on a per vehicle basis, have a huge disproportional emissions impact, just how big those vehicles are, which there's some coverage, but not necessarily in the public eye. But I'd say the biggest two things for me are just trying to get more people over that hump and help them understand the complexity of both automated driving and electrified vehicles, and help them realize that, just because you're, and the example, just because you're buying a huge vehicle or an electric vehicle, if it's massive with a terrible aerodynamic profile and it's 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, you're not necessarily making the greenest impact. And there's more that goes into it than that. It's understanding where this electricity is coming from. It's trying to minimize how much you're moving around. If you have Amazon showing up at your door 10 times a day, it doesn't matter what they're driving. It's not as efficient if they came once a week. Yeah. All great points. And then same thing on the automated driving thing. It's understanding that please don't go in your full self-driving Tesla and think that it actually is full self-driving and get in an accident and kill someone who's innocently driving beside you. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, there's like a lot of nuance and complexity that is lost on the end. I guess I would say consumer, because a lot of these technologies are being productized and are being adopted at material levels. And so I think it's great to point out those nuances, because they truly do get lost. You could buy an EV and call it a day, but that isn't necessarily, that's not like a silver bullet for solving your carbon footprint issue if you're doing some other things in your life, or depending on where you draw your power from and everything. So and to speak even further to the kind of the value that I think, or from my perception, what you're bringing. So I'm in the trenches, as you said, in the mobility space, trying to sell services and develop these technologies. So obviously I'm thinking about it a lot. You're covering it, so obviously you're thinking about it a lot. But even if someone just wants to be a responsible purchaser and make their own impact in the world in some positive way, it's worth putting in the effort. And if it's a newsletter that comes and it's 5 minutes once every 3 weeks, you're going to be a lot further along than if you just sit idly and just read headlines and whatever happens to be making the, I don't know, the big station news in the evenings.
I would endorse that.
Yeah, I would I would guess based on the based on the pet. And I'm excited to see.
No further comment.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where you go with your next deep dive and stuff, and how you guys continue to grow as a media company, and how that, if it's more deep dive articles, or if that expands further. I think the purpose and the execution is very well done so far. So I'm excited to follow along.
Awesome. Yeah. On that front, I would just say keep your eyes peeled.
Yep.